Well, howdy YouTube family. It is Bolt CRNA coming to you again with another day's topic. Today we're going to be talking about what my biggest challenge in CRNA school was. There's lots of challenges in CRNA school. You might have had a slightly different experience, but I want to talk to you about what my biggest challenges were while I was getting through 3 years of hell. Let's get into it. I have this broke down into 10, 12 things that are my biggest things, and I don't have them exactly listed in importance from most to least, but kind of listed in importance to most to least. So yeah, it's kind of a loose list, but I will start with the number one thing that was the worst to me, and that was the most challenging, I'll say, is time management. My time management in school was not the best. I mean, I was pretty good at it. I'll say you're not going to graduate CRNA school unless you get pretty good at time management. But I'd say other people are better, and it physically exhausts me and mentally exhausts me to be extremely stringent with my time management and to be very structured by the book. And you know, some people like to put a calendar up and put like 6 a.m. study, 7:30, eat breakfast, 7:45 write paper, 9:45 go to lecture, whatever that may be for their day. They like to have it extremely listed out. I don't like to do that, especially not for 3 years long term. That's just too much. So you kind of have to do that a little bit for CRNA school, because otherwise you'll just miss stuff. Like you'll forget things, you'll miss things, you won't manage your time well, and time will get away from you pretty quickly. So yeah, time management is going to be very, very important for your success in school. And I didn't like it, and it was my biggest challenge, and it was the thing that even today I don't like to do. On my off days, I purposefully do not put restrictions on my schedule. I do not put a lot of things. I will have a couple things in my day that I like, mock interviews that I do where I have to know, like, okay, at 2 p.m. I have to do this mock interview for an hour. Or if I'm going to record a podcast with somebody, I have to schedule that for a certain amount of time on my off day. So on those aspects, whatever, I'll do that. But outside of those couple things that I may schedule, I will not put a limitation on my day. I will not structure it in a way where I set an alarm clock and I get up and I go eat breakfast by 7:45 every morning and I blah, blah, blah. I just don't do that. It stresses me out. I do it enough in my professional life with work, which is mandatory that I schedule things because surgery is very stringent and scheduled. But yeah, in my personal life, I don't. And I would say in CRNA school, even on your off days where you're not in class or a clinical, you do have to be fairly strict with your schedule and in managing that time. And I hated it. It was probably the worst element of CRNA school, and the fact that you had to do it for 3 full years. So yeah, embrace time management and that kind of structure when you're going into CRNA school, because you're going to really need it. The next element of CRNA school that was the most challenging for me was clinical. It kind of also ties in with the fact that it's very structured. Like I said, you have to be somewhere at a certain given time, usually extremely early in the morning, even earlier than you will have to be there as a CRNA. You have to be there as an SRNA because you have to set up the room, you have to prep everything beforehand. It's always going to take you a little longer to do things that you would have done as a CRNA. It's going to take you a little bit longer because you're in training. You need to see the patient. You need to have done all those things before the physician anesthesiologist or the CRNA, whoever you're with that day, shows up to see the patient for your cases, because they should never beat you to seeing the patient. I remember there was one time where I thought I got there really early and I thought I did everything on time, and I was setting up the room, I got the OR room set up, I got all the drugs drawn up, and then I was going to go see the patient in pre-op, which is usually the last thing that I did of my morning as an anesthesia trainee. And I remember I was working with a very type A, very structured CRNA that day, and she actually was the clinical coordinator for that facility. And she was known for one who kind of like writes people up. Like if she doesn't like something you're doing, she'll send you home and give you like a failing grade for the day, which can get you removed from your program. And she was kind of very stringent, and I was nervous to be working with her. And she got there earlier than typical for the CRNAs. And she got there early. Turned out the pre-op nurses weren't able to establish an IV on our patient, and she was already inserting the IV when I walked over there to see the patient. I was mortified, and I thought, man, even when I'm trying my hardest in training, I still can't seem to get early enough to places and to beat people from things. And she got mad at me, and I got a lecture for that. So I will say clinical, definitely a challenge in CRNA school. One of my biggest, not because clinically I struggled, but just because of all the other elements of being in training that go along with just being talked down to, always being wrong, always having to feel like you're walking on eggshells or like you're lesser than everyone else around you. There's kind of a vibe that's put off on CRNA students that it's really not healthy and not appropriate. And a lot of people are talking about it nowadays, like I'm talking about it, to bring awareness to it and hopefully to change it. It's also the way that physician residents are treated pretty badly too. So maybe as we all start to talk more and more about this and break this cycle, it will change. But when I went through school, it was not a fun time to go to clinical. It was stressful. My third struggle with anesthesia training was studying. You will study more in CRNA school than you ever have for anything in your life. And way more than you thought you ever could study for something. You will study and study and study, think that you're okay, and then study some more. Like it's really remarkable how much you will study. And you will not do it for a semester or 2 semesters or 3 semesters. You will do it for 3 straight years without stopping, without any true breaks. So yeah, that aspect of it, I think really, because in undergrad, there would be like, say your microbiology class, maybe the last half of microbiology class, the last couple months, the difficulty ramped up really intense. So for that class, you studied way more than you thought you'd have to, but you made that A, you did good, you finished the semester, great, you moved on, and next semester was probably easier. Imagine in CRNA school, it's all 4 or 5 of your classes are like that, or most of them I'll say are going to be like that, and it's not just part of the semester, it's the entire semester, and then you have like 1 week in between semesters, and then you'll do all 4 classes or 5 classes the next semester, all going to be that same level, and you're just going to keep doing it without stopping for 3 straight years. So yeah, that's kind of what it's like studying in CRNA school. Exams. Exams are the 4th element. So that's what you're studying for, are to pass these exams. And that's probably why you just study so much, because you'll take the exam and you'll realize they're so difficult. And people ask me all the time, is it difficult like undergrad, like nursing school exams? No, it's not the same. I would say it's more difficult than nursing school exams, but it's not difficult in the same way that nursing school exams are. Nursing school exams are difficult not because the content was just wildly difficult, but because they would try and test you on which was the most right of an answer, to the point that it was kind of ridiculous. And that's not exactly the way it's done in CRNA school. You will have some teachers who will answer, A, B, C, and D will all be pretty correct, but one of them will be more correct than the other. But there's usually, I'll find that mostly it was difficult because they will ask you a question that requires you to have mastered the content in a way that you've never mastered content before. Like they will have talked about A and B in class, like say A and B was discussed in class during lecture, and then you had C and D in your notes or in a textbook that they reference that you should go read, or an outside source that you should read, and then they're going to ask you on the test how to get to F or G. And so you're going to have to take data and information that you are studying and have mastered it to the level that they can throw you a couple steps farther along the equation than what you really studied for, and you still are going to be able to figure that answer out. And it may even tie in information from a year ago's class that they know you took because it's their program and they structured it, and they know you took a class on pediatrics a year ago, so you should be able to answer this neuro question in relations to an 11-year-old that they threw in there from a year ago. So yeah, that's kind of what makes CRNA school difficult. Lecture is my next thing that I would say is difficult. There were days in lecture where you literally thought your brain would bleed because they just kept talking and talking and talking, and they just kept covering more and more rapid material and difficult material at such a level that you were like, there's no way that you just said all those words and you're just moving to the next PowerPoint slide and you're not even giving us a break, because my brain is still trying to comprehend what you just said, and now you've just layered on another part of the concept with the next slide, and it's even more difficult, and I can't grasp it yet because I still can't understand what you just said 3 slides ago, and now you've already moved on to the next slide and you've put more information on it, and now we just changed to a different area subject, and now we're talking about something totally different, and I'm knowing in my head that I don't understand this concept at all that you just talked about. And I'm gonna have to go back at home and study this for like 3 hours to understand what you're talking about and to look at outside resources and outside stuff. So yeah, as I'm going through all this in my head, I would find that I'm still trying to figure out the concept you were talking about before, and I've just missed the last 15 slides of what you talked to. And then I get so frustrated and so upset that now I'm like, I have to do a mental meditation moment to keep myself calm enough to even sit there in that chair any longer. And so yeah, that's just something that I dealt with all the time in CRNA school. Exercising when in CRNA school, it's going to be difficult because you're not going to have much time. You're not going to have time to spend a lot of energy exercising. You're going to be tired a lot of times, just mentally tired. You're going to have to be very structured, and you're going to have to find time to exercise. And I found it very important to exercise for my mental health. So I would record my lecture notes of me studying and stuff, and I would listen to it while I ran or worked out at the gym so I could study and exercise at the same time. Friends and family in school, they're going to be a difficult thing to juggle because they're not going to understand what you're going through. They're going to think that you're going to be like kind of a crappy son or brother or whatever, sister, and they're also going to think you're a crappy friend if they're friends of yours, because you just are not going to be able to dedicate much time to them. You're going to be very consumed with school. You're going to be tied up with a schedule that's going to probably take 70 hours of your week up, and then during the time that you're not doing some of those things, you're just going to be mentally and physically exhausted. You're not going to feel like going out and hanging out very much, and you're probably not going to have the time to do it. So yeah, juggling them during 3 years of school is not an easy task, and I'd say that was probably a struggle for me. For me personally, my dog was a stressor in CRNA school. It was one of the more things that I struggled with in CRNA school because I had to think about taking him out for walks, making sure he was fed, making sure he's getting some attention, and not feeling like he's left by himself all the time, because I lived alone. So if I didn't pay him any attention, he got no interaction, and I've only got the one dog, so we had nobody else to play with. It was just me. And so I'd have to take him to the dog park, and when I would have 4-day stretches of out-of-town clinical rotations, which I did for about 2 years, I would have to pay for him to go to a dog sitter and have to wonder about if he was doing okay over there, or if he was getting, fighting along with the other dogs or something that the dog sitter had. And so there was just always he would get sick to his stomach, especially as a puppy. He would get worms, or he would have something come up, and I would have to take him to the vet and find time to go to a vet appointment. I never had time to do that, especially not Monday through Friday when the vet was open. So yeah, dogs, responsibilities, you got kids, things like that. That is going to be a big struggle in CRNA school, and you really are going to need some help. I don't think there's anybody who can do it all by themselves. Household chores, I pretty much am a neat freak, and so I would, like I said, when I exercise, I listen to my lectures and stuff. I would put my lectures on, and I would do laundry. I'd wash the dishes. I would keep up with the house, whatever I had to do. I would do that pretty much while listening to lectures, so I could feel like I was doing the chores and keeping up with stuff around the house while also being productive with my school stuff. If you belong to any professional organizations that require time or commitment, like maybe it's a church or maybe it's a nursing group or something like that, you're really not going to have much time for that. So if you're trying to add on extra roles like that, that's going to be a big time sink, and that's going to add a lot of stress to you. I did not get too involved in a lot of extra stuff. I would say, some people may laugh when I say that, because I was the political representative for our class. So that meant I was required to go to all the state meetings for the Tennessee Association of Nurse Anesthetists. And I was also required to go to the AANA meetings as well, which is the National American Association of Nurse Anesthetists meetings. And so I would I would fly out to those meetings and spend maybe a weekend or even a week a couple times a year engaging in lobbying with senators and House of Representative members and stuff, legislators, to talk about needs for CRNAs and in our training and just advocating, representing for our career. And I also did YouTube a little bit back then too, of course. So I mean, I did some outside things, but yeah, I would say I tried to contain it to a certain amount, and I think any of you who are involved in other organizations and stuff should take that to heart. Like, don't spread yourself too thin. And the last thing is extracurricular activities. So like, I mean, if you play disc golf on a local league or something like that, or you just were used to doing something for fun, social, that you enjoyed doing in your community or with friends or whatever group. If you like to go out and do Pokemon Go with a certain group and catch Pokemon in the park or something, that's going to be not much time for that. I mean, and if you try and make time for that, that's going to stress you out even worse. And so I found that to be a big challenge in CRNA school, because I wanted to do extracurricular things. I wanted to be involved in professional organizations. You want to have a social life. You want to have these things that kind of make you feel like a human being and make you feel like a whole person. And you're really just not going to have the time. And the little bit of time you might have is going to be very minimal, and you're going to have to really time manage yourself very tightly to schedule that kind of time. Yeah. These were some of my core challenges in CRNA school. I want to hear from you guys down below what your challenges in CRNA school were, and if you're trying to get into CRNA school, what do you do in your personal life that you're worried you're not going to have time to do? Maybe comment and I'll let you know if I'd had friends or somebody who did that and managed to make it work somehow. Make sure and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Make sure and join the memberships if you want to be a member of the channel. I'd love to connect with you guys over there. We got behind the scenes videos. I do one-on-one mentorship. We do live chats every month. I do mock interviews over there if you want it, resume reviews, whatever you need to get to where you're trying to go in life. I do that for you. Hit the membership button, join up over there. And until next time, that's Bolt out.